Well, Apple certainly had themselves a nice little week this week, didn't they? Between the new Mac Studios, the new MacBook Air, iPad Air, new iPad 11th generation, the iPhone 16e being in people's hands, there's a lot to like about what happened this week, so let's get into it. So let's start off in chronological order, and on Monday we got iOS as well as iPadOS 18.4 Beta 2, as well as the public beta the very next day for everybody to test out and try out if you are in the beta program, and there wasn't too much of a difference between Beta 1 and Beta 2. Beta 1 did bring the new mail application to iPadOS, it brought the new food section or recipe section inside of the News Plus application. We also got priority notifications, which has been something that I've really been liking overall, so if you guys aren't on the 18.4 beta and are looking to get into it, I recommend trying it out if you do want to through the public beta program because it's totally free, and for the most part all the kinks have been ironed out with the beta 2. I will say battery life on the iPhone has not been amazing, but battery life on my M4 iPad Pro has been actually very good overall, even running these iPadOS betas. We also got some fun things like the ambient music section inside of the control center, which is gonna foreshadow, I think, a new piece of hardware like the HomePod or some sort of HomePad situation with a speaker and display. And then finally we did get 7 new emojis, which I'll put up on the screen right now for you guys to check out. So then Tuesday started a slew of hardware updates that Apple gave us via a press release, with the first ones being the new iPads. So we did get a new M3 iPad Air, which again is gonna have the M3 chip as opposed to the M2 chip. And for the most part, Apple is very aware that people having an M2 iPad Air or even an M1 iPad Air shouldn't really upgrade to this one because they weren't comparing the M3 iPad Air to the previous iPad Air. They were comparing it to older models like the M1 or that 5th gen iPad Air to really showcase what it looks like when it improves over a long period of time of about 2 or 3 years. Because the overall gains you see year over year aren't going to be that great, and it's not going to entice people enough unless you show those older models compared to the brand new one. But for all intents and purposes, the iPad Air lineup has remained exactly the same. You still have the same exact colors, you still have the same exact starting price point, the same storage. The only thing that changed is that internal spec of going from M2 to M3. And I'm still not 100% aware what the RAM situation is like on the iPad Air. I still think it's being binned down to 8 gigs of unified memory, but if we do end up finding out that it does have a 16 gig variant in that larger storage model, you'll be the first to know. One new thing that came alongside the 11 and 13-inch iPad Air is that they got their own version of the Magic Keyboard. Again, this is kind of a little bit strange in terms of what can be used with it and what can't be used with it, but it's basically in between the original Magic Keyboard and the current M4 iPad Pro Magic Keyboard, where the style is relatively the same to the new one, where the actual hinge is now this oval shape, it's still charged with USB-C, you get a larger trackpad compared to the old Magic Keyboard, but still a smaller trackpad to the current Magic Keyboard for the iPad Pro. You get the function row keys, which are nice to see, but the material choices that they went with on the M3 iPad Air Magic Keyboard is that plasticky, rubbery material that we are very used to compared to the aluminum material which we have now with the M4 iPad Pro Magic Keyboard. These Magic Keyboards are a little bit cheaper than the iPad Pro Magic Keyboard, but by I believe $30. So again, it's a nice little thing to have, but one thing to note is that compatibility-wise, it only works with the iPad Airs, albeit it works with older iPad Airs, but it will not work with iPad Pros or even older iPad Pros. And then Apple released a brand new iPad 11th generation, which again is Apple's entry point for the iPad. It remains at that same $349 price point, does double up that baseline spec to 128 gigs of storage, which is great to see. It has the A16 chip in it, which means this is a brand new product and the first brand new product that does not have Apple Intelligence or is able to run any sort of Apple Intelligence as of right now. So if you do need an iPad with Apple Intelligence, unfortunately that iPad 11 will not be the case for you. But that is everything that we got from the iPad situation. So new M3 iPad Airs in the 11 and 13-inch variant, as well as a new iPad 11 generation. And what's interesting about this time around is that Apple actually promoted their education pricing. They never ever promote the education pricing. They kind of have that as an afterthought. It's all the way at the bottom of the website on those footer notes that you can click on to get $100 off or $50 off. But Apple did promote their education pricing for the iPad Air and iPad 11 generation, so something to consider if you do want to go and get something a little bit cheaper directly from Apple. And then to finally transition over to the Mac lineup, we got a brand new M4 MacBook Air, and we got a brand new color, which is this kind of sky blue. I believe that's actually what it's called. But now you have 4 different color options. You have your Starlight, your Sky Blue, your Silver, and then your Midnight, which is kind of like that darkish blue hue that everybody really liked with the M2 MacBook Air. And for the most part, the MacBook Air did stay the same outside of that colorway. The only real improvement that we saw was to the selfie camera. We now have a 12 megapixel selfie camera or FaceTime camera inside of that notch. Still no Face ID sadly, but it does bring things like center stage and desk view to the MacBook Air, which is nice to have in their built-in webcam, so that's going to be a nice little addition. And the other thing that we got is going to be support for multiple displays while still having the main Retina display of your MacBook Air still open. The previous one with the M3 MacBook Air supported dual displays, those 6K displays even, but you needed to be in clamshell mode in order for that second display to kind of fire up. But now you can have both 6K displays as well as your Retina display from your laptop open as your kind of command center and be able to use all three of those displays simultaneously from your $1,000 MacBook Air. And that's another selling point and feature of this MacBook Air is the fact that this MacBook Air is actually $100 cheaper than the previous generation. So you can get it for $999 for the 13-inch model and $1199 for the 15-inch model, and again, $100 off each one through the Education Store, which again, they promoted. I'm curious to know why they're actually promoting the Education Store pricing to maybe even give you another feature set, which is a price point reduction, which I think is always probably the best feature you can have with any laptop or any piece of hardware. So for $899, an M4 Sky Blue MacBook Air with 256 gigs of storage and 16 gigs of unified RAM built in as a baseline, that is a hard bargain, and that is now officially my most recommendable computer on the market. And now last but not least, Apple did release their brand new Mac Studio, and it was a little bit interesting. We have a whole video really kind of going in depth on what it means, so I'll leave that link down below for you guys to check out. But they released not only an M4 Max Mac Studio, but they also released an M3 Ultra Mac Studio. And funny enough, the M3 Ultra is the powerhouse. That is going to be the flagship, that is the top of the line, and I believe they're saving that M4 Ultra for the Mac Pro in the future. So for $2,000, you can get the new M4 Max Mac Studio, and then at a starting price of $4,000, you can get the brand new M3 Ultra Mac Studio. That M3 Ultra Mac Studio is pretty insane. You can spec this thing up immensely. To get up to a 32-core CPU, you can get an 80-core GPU, another 32-core neural engine core. You can also get up to 512 gigs of unified RAM. Unified RAM, not storage. You can get half a terabyte of unified RAM, and that is absolutely insane. Again, for context, that 13-inch MacBook Air that we were talking about has 16 gigs of unified RAM or unified memory compared to the 512 that you can max the spec out on the Mac Studio. It also supports up to 16 terabytes of internal storage, and it does max out at $14,099 if that's something that you want to do, and you can get up to 8 6K displays running off of it, which is absolutely insane. So you know who you are if you need this much power and this much computer, but it's just amazing to see how much can be done in kind of a small form factor, to be totally honest. But that pretty much rounds up the entire week for Apple. We also had the iPhone 16e in-house, and we have a whole review on it, which I'll link down below. I've been using it as my main phone, and I actually really like it for the price point. In a silo, I think it's a great offering at $600 to kind of future-proof yourself a little bit. You have Apple Intelligence, you have the action button, you have Face ID, you have a 48 megapixel camera, you have USB-C, you have an OLED display, albeit 60 Hz, but still an OLED display. So overall, the 16e, I think, is going to be that kind of free phone that you get from every carrier moving forward. But that'll do it, everybody. That is everything that happened in Apple this week, everything that happened tech-wise. Let me know in the comment down below if you plan on picking any of these new pieces of hardware up. I definitely want to try out that new sky blue color for the MacBook Air and possibly try out one of those Mac Studios to see exactly how much this power can give you overall, especially for somebody who might not be pushing it nearly as close to that top 10%. But that'll do it, everybody. If you made it to the end, leave a little dolphin in the comments down below so I know you made it to the end. And if you want to watch more videos like this one, check out one of these videos right here. And until next time, I'm Fernando. Peace, everybody.